Hey, hello guys. This is Fedotoff, and today we have very interesting guest, Geoff Atkinson. So Geoff has very interesting background. So he's a former senior vice president of marketing at Overstock.com, and he grew their organic channel from $0 to $300 million in just 3 years. And currently, he's the founder and CEO of Huckabuy, the search engine optimization software company with customers like Salesforce, SAP, Concur, and others. And Geoff will share with us some of the good stuff, some of the updates about that are coming to Google. In 2021. Have you here today, man?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you've got pretty interesting background, right? I mean, you've been part of the company where it experienced such a massive kind of growth. How was that experience? Was that crazy experience? 100-hour weeks? How was that?
Yeah, Overstock was a rocket ship. You know, we grew like crazy while I was there. It grew a lot before I got there. We worked really hard, but I'd say the sort of key to our success was trying and testing a lot of things. We took a very analytical approach. We figured out sort of the key things that mattered and that we wanted to be good as a core competency, including like email marketing, CRM and a loyalty program, SEO, branding. Those types of things were like the things that we really noticed moved the needle the most. And so if we could do those really well and become experts in those areas, that's really what fueled the Overstock growth. Yeah, it was a crazy few years. I was there for 7 years, and I think we reached about 1.2 or 3 billion in annual revenue by the time I left. So it was, yeah, everybody's familiar with the Overstock brand. It was a fantastic company to work for. It was the first company out of college that I worked for, and so had a very great career trajectory there and learned a ton about e-commerce. I knew nothing about e-commerce coming into it. And now, you know, that was my world for 7 years. Now I'm in the software side of things in the B2B software world. But I learned so much in B2C, especially around marketing, that a lot of those skills still apply, especially on the marketing front. So yeah, it was a great story.
That's awesome. How do you become senior vice president of marketing? Did you have few positions before that, or they just made you a senior vice president?
No, I started on the bottom rung, making $35,000 a year. I worked on the email marketing team as my first assignment. We grew that like crazy, and I think it's Overstock sort of a meritocracy. You know, if you do really well, you get promoted. And so I just kept putting results up on the scoreboard. You know, the email grew into the hundreds of millions. And then I started taking a lot of the personalization that we were doing in email and applying it to the website. And then I learned about this thing called SEO, and that was a crazy growth story. So yeah, started on the ground floor. Then I think I became like the email marketing manager. And then I became, I think it was like director of website and analytics, and then VP of marketing, then SVP of marketing. And I did almost all the revenue facing side. So not just marketing, but also all the CRM, the loyalty program, the credit card program, all the pricing and forecasting algorithms as well. So the analytics that went into pricing all the products and forecasting inventory levels, kind of touched it all. So it was a hell of a run. But no, they didn't hire some 22-year-old kid out of college as a senior vice president.
That's interesting. So how is at what point you had that experience as senior vice president? At what point why you decided to start your own company, or what was your main kind of drive or motivation?
Yeah, Alex, I knew I always wanted to start my own company. That was always in the back of my mind. I also knew though that I knew what I didn't know. So it's pretty rare that Mark Zuckerberg, you know, comes out straight out of college with a great idea and this bang, you know, into this huge success. So I really wanted to get some corporate experience. That's what Overstock was all about for me. But after 7 years, I felt like I had gained enough experience that I was prepared to do my own thing. And so a couple of years later, after taking a break, set out to do Huckabuy. And here we are today. I've been working on it for about 6-7 years now. The first couple of years were as a B2C brand, actually. It was a comparison shopping engine that was not doing well at all, an affiliate model. Fortunately, though, we had built some great SEO automation technology that people that knew Huckabuy and knew me pretty well wanted to start licensing. So about 4 years ago, we pivoted into a SaaS business and have been growing steadily ever since.
Nice. So again, like you applied the same type of thinking, right? Like identifying your core competency, right? So because you've identified that portion of the business was kind of like valuable, right? Like, and then you like focus your whole, like you kind of like built your business on top of that.
Yeah, you know, I wish I knew more about SaaS when I started Huckabuy. I'm still kind of learning as we go. Obviously, I have the marketing background to help drive leads and traffic and things like that to our site, but SaaS really is a totally different beast. You know, you're meeting individual customers. It's much more interactive personally. You know, Overstock, like the customers are just, you know, once in a while you'll meet a customer and they'll be like, "I happy, you know, I bought sheets or whatever and I love them." But it's not the same as, you know, we just look at data at Overstock, and here we look not just at data, but there's human beings involved in a much more personal level. So definitely learning the sales side of things and what it takes for great revenue growth in the SaaS business. It's interesting. B2C is just a lot different than B2B. B2C, especially on the marketing side, I'd say is a lot more aggressive, probably a lot more sophisticated as well. So if you want to learn in the B2B world, like what's really happening in the marketing world, you got to look at specifically e-commerce, because they're just so clever on how they do marketing. Every penny counts in e-commerce, while on the SaaS side, the margins are much bigger. You can grow a pretty big company just through having a great sales team. With e-commerce, it's so competitive that you have to be good at everything. You have to be good at SEO, you have to be good at social, you have to be good at email, you have to be good at conversion rate optimization. So it's a very competitive landscape. So I'm glad I got that e-commerce background, because, you know, I always say, like, you don't want to pick your number one competitor to be Amazon. And that was my life for 7 years. So when you're competing against Amazon, like, you're really having to learn and do things at a very sophisticated level, because you're up against arguably one of the most sophisticated and strategic companies ever created. In our space, in SEO software, you know, it's just a different, it's not as, it's competitive, but it's not as sophisticated. So I do think that e-commerce is a great place for people to start their careers, because it is just so competitive, and you're going to learn, you know, exactly what's happening on the cutting edge. They're just always finding new paths to be successful, and so it's a very, very cool field to be involved with, like you are.
Awesome. And so, like with Huckabuy, like, so you guys powering mostly like enterprise level companies. Did also work with some e-commerce companies, like amplifying their search engine optimization?
Yeah, we work kind of across the board, and it's not just enterprise, all the way down to startups. You know, everybody needs increases in organic search traffic, and so our customers are extremely diversified. We're also good at marketing ourselves, so we're not picking out who our customers are. They're typically coming to us. E-commerce absolutely benefits from Huckabuy. We have some brands like POC Sports and Faraday brand, all the way up to like a big Vivint, who's like a home security company based here in Utah, a huge enterprise customer. But yeah, e-com relies heavily on SEO. So we're right in the mix when it comes to e-commerce still.
Awesome. And so how is it, you mentioned that there will be an update, right? We had a little chat before our call. So there will be like May 2021 Google update, right? And I know from previous, you know, because this stuff evolved over time, right? There'd been like Penguin, or what was the update? Like,
yeah, Penguin was a big one.
Yeah, so there'd be like updates that would like literally, you know, some businesses would exist and they would make money somehow, and like overnight, like they wouldn't exist anymore, right? Like,
yeah.
How serious is this update, and what specifically is being updated, and how important from your perspective this update is?
So I think this is going to be the biggest update in at least 10 to 15 years. They've never talked about an update over a year in advance before turning it on. They actually delayed this update because of COVID. They were worried that it was going to impact the economy too much. So you can't say, but they've just never done this before. Usually they just do updates. They don't tell you ahead of time. And this time they're going to tell you ahead of time, almost a year in advance. So I have a feeling this is a very big update. It's coming in May of 2021. It's called the Google Page Experience Update. And it's really all about page speed. So one of the big problems for Google and for just the internet is, as people use their phones more and more to connect online, page speed is an issue because connections are slower. And you just look at your own behavior. You know, a slow website, you know, you end up leaving almost all the time. It affects conversion rate, it affects SEO, it affects all your paid channels. And I think this is Google just sort of putting a line in the sand and saying, we're not going to put up with this anymore. If you don't have a fast website, you're just going to get severely penalized. It's coming in May. It's a big update. Huckabuy's actually built a specific product just for this update called our page speed product. It's really based on what Google calls their Lighthouse scores. So Google Lighthouse is a way that Chrome browsers around the world feed Google back information about how fast websites are performing. It's used by developers and also marketers to sort of look and see how fast and where they can improve. So our product is specifically designed to improve those scores. It usually improves like 30 to 40 points. If you go to Huckabuy's website right now and you just go through on your mobile phone and disconnect from the internet, you'll see just how fast it is. We're always in the high 90s out of 100. So it's a really big update.
Oh, I just went to your website. It loaded like almost instantly.
Yeah, it's very fast, and that's key for this algorithm update. Thanks for checking it out. The other piece is, like, with algorithm updates, you always hear about the losers. You always hear about the ones that went down because they're kicking and screaming and they're freaking out that they've lost all these rankings.
Yeah.
But on the same side, right, for a ranking to go down, some ranking has to go up. And so we always try to get on the positive side of an algorithm update and look at it as an opportunity rather than something that worries us. So with our page speed, I would imagine Huckabuy and our customers are going to actually do better in May. We're really looking forward to that. We think it's going to drive a lot of business as well to Huckabuy. But yeah, it's a big one. It's it doesn't just affect your SEO. It's going to affect your conversion rate, your bounce rates, all your paid media channels. So it's I think them just saying, we're kind of sick of this. We're going to draw a line in the sand and make sure websites are fast.
What do you think about the voice search and those type of things?
Yeah, voice search is the future. So I think of voice search a lot like I think about mobile. So you probably remember, early days of mobile, we all had Trios and Blackberries and would be hunting and pecking, and sites weren't built for mobile, so they'd be really slow. When you first had a Trio, a page could take 2 minutes to load. And then, so people didn't really use their phones that much to browse. It was something like 90% desktop, 10% mobile. And then out came the iPhone, and then connection speeds picked up and companies started focusing on mobile-friendly websites. And like in the period of like a few months, it like flipped. It went from 90% desktop, 10% mobile to like 90% mobile, 10% desktop. And that's just because the user experience got to the place where it was just as easy to view a site on your phone as it was on your desktop, and the phone was more convenient. And so, everybody switched. I think voice search is very similar to that. So the user interaction with voice search today is not as good as if I got onto my computer and started typing. You just don't get as good of an experience. So say I wanted to buy something from an e-commerce site, very easy for me to do so on my desktop or on my phone. But with voice search, I'm always wondering, am I getting the best price? Are the proper coupons applied? Like, it's just not a great experience yet. But I think that's going to change. I think that's going to flip. And you're going to find that voice search, all of a sudden, when that user interaction gets to a point where it's just as easy to buy through talking to your device as it is by typing into your device, you're going to see that flip just like it did with mobile. And so you got to be prepared for voice search. Voice search is almost entirely generated using something called structured data markup, which is this language that search engines use to understand sites, and they also use it to provide what they call rich enhancements on search results. So, when you just see the sports score, or you see the review ratings or whatever, that's all powered by this language. And so it's a big thing coming down the tracks. I don't know when it's going to flip, like I think it will, probably sometime in the next 5 years, but you do have to be prepared for it. And that to prepare for that is really around structured data.
So for example, for your company, for the service that you provide, will you be able to kind of like evolve into that, like with the data and with capabilities and with the technology that you have?
Yeah, and we're already seeing that. So we provide automated structured data for our customers as well as dynamic rendering and page speed. But companies
So
that
just
are
to
leveraging
make sure, the
structured
automated
data,
structured data is kind of like the data that, for example, Google can recognize, it's like that schema or something, or
yeah, schema, exactly. So, the way that Google typically understands a site is by crawling its HTML and trying to understand what that's non-structured. That's each site is different in the way they display their HTML. With structured data, it's the same across all sites. So if you have a product and you have a structured data on that product, it'll say, here's the SKU number, here's the product name, here's the description, here's the price, here's the reviews. And it puts it in a format that's the same across all sites. So it's the same on Amazon, it's the same on eBay, it's the same on Overstock. And then they can trust that information because it's formatted. They now can trust that information. It becomes authoritative. So instead of like metadata is really suggestive about what a product might be or what it might be about, with structured data, it's authoritative. You're saying this is a fact. And because it's the same across multiple sites, they can now leverage that information and display it within their own search results. 50% of searches now are zero click, meaning you search on Google and you just get the answer. And that's a huge change from the past. And if you just watch your own search behavior during the daytime or whenever, you'll notice this, like you don't click about 50% of the time. You just get the answer.
I never thought of it. Yeah, but like you search for a specific question and there's like they give you the automated answer, and like most of the time it's like solves it.
Yeah, so that's all being powered by this language, and 50%, if you don't have good structured data, you're missing out on 50% of the search audience. It's a strategic thing for Google. They don't want you leaving. They want you to get another big trend besides the zero click is that people now are more interested in immediacy than they are in like the brand that they trust. So I use this example of like sports scores. Used to be you'd search for, I'm from Boston, so I'd search for like Red Sox sports score, and you'd pick which, like ESPN, Yahoo Sports, whatever one you trusted the most would be the one that you clicked on and then went to. Now it just gives you the answer and you don't even care where it came from. It's about the immediacy of that answer that we now care about more than the brand loyalty to a specific site. So that's a big change. And to do this well, you have to have good structured data, and your site has to be set up to be able to provide these answers.
Wow. So that is exactly what your company provides, right? That the way to do it, like on automated on a big scale, like kind of like your bots or something, they scroll the content or somehow like structure them properly, or how does it work?
So it's we fully automate it. So we actually crawl through the site and identify all the structured data opportunities, and then we insert them into the page using a JSON LD packet of information. So you go from wherever you are, you might have no structured data, you might have a little, you might have a lot, but we'll take you from wherever you are to like world-class structured data in like 2 or 3 days. And then that's just ongoing. So as the site changes and new pages come, you can count on Huckabuy providing great structured data for your site.
Wow, that's awesome. What's typically the impact of that in terms of like search, like rankings and search like traffic? Let's say the website that, I mean, that's a web question. Like, I mean, it's very difficult probably to answer because every situation and starting point for every website is different, right? But just generally,
so our average customer grows about 62% in 12 months in terms of their organic search traffic. Their revenue will be higher than that. Usually the revenue is in the triple digit growth, 100% or a little bit more. The impressions will also be about 100% or more. So it's significant. It's, if you listen to Google and do what they are asking, which is what Huckabuy is built to do, then you get rewarded by that. And I think that'll actually increase come May in this algorithm update that's coming down the pipeline.
So where do you see, so one of the trends that you're foreseeing, the voice will just overtake gradually. What other trends you're seeing, like in terms of the like search engine or Google, maybe like Google as a company, right? Because they also evolve as a company, right? And so if less people search for something, because Google's main drivers like Google AdWords, right? They're paid advertising. So if Google if less people search or they get the answer to a specific kind of like thing, do they see like drop in kind of like in that like revenue from advertising? Are they looking for some other monetization channels? Like, what do you see from that perspective?
Yeah, so I think the three big trends for them: page speed, the importance of page speed and not ranking sites that are slow; voice search. And voice search is interesting because it's not just Google at this point. That's actually kind of a level playing field where you have Alexa and you have Siri taking a huge percentage of market share through Amazon and Apple. So that's actually an interesting moment where Google doesn't dominate how people are searching via voice search, and I'm sure they'd like to change that. And then the sort of zero click, giving the answer right away trend, I don't think is going anywhere. If you look at their revenues, I mean, they're not hurting at all. Their, search volume keeps increasing. They're still the number one by the landslide. I think when it's those zero click searches, not a lot of them would even feature advertisements because you're asking for like what the weather is or, directions or, a movie time or something like that. So it's not, I don't think they're losing a lot of revenue as a result of the zero click. It's the intent, right? When there's the intent to purchase, you're still clicking through and you're going to an e-commerce site or whatever. So I think, yeah, those three things, the importance of page speed, the transition to voice search, and a more interactive experience with Google, like where you can just buy, the fact that they have Google Pay now, like you probably will be able to just purchase right through Google without, you might know what the retailer is, but at some point you're just going to be like, yeah, I want that. Ship it to me. They have your address and credit card and all the information to be able to make the transaction happen. So they're just trying to make it easier for users. That's really what they are always searching for, is like, how do we get the user to interact with us more, and then how can we monetize that? So when you look at like Google Shopping and what they're doing there, I'd say that's just going to get more and more sophisticated. But yeah, those are some of the big trends I see coming.
Cool. Slightly different question. So when you transition from like SVP of marketing in Overstock and like you started your own company, you mentioned like the first like few years didn't go like too well, right? So what motivated you to like keep pushing it? Like, in terms like, because you had that experience. I mean, if you wanted to get a job or, well-paid job, you probably could have, right? What kept you pushing at those like difficult moments?
Well, you have your own company, I think what it's like. Being a founder is definitely, it's not easy. They tell you that ahead of time, but I don't think anyone really understands the slog at the beginning. And now some companies just take off. That was not Huckabuy's case. We've taken off, sort of 3 years later, we took off. You really just don't have a choice, right? You either shut it down and take a cushy job and work the 9-to-5 thing, or you keep heads down and just do whatever it takes. And I think you have to be able to do whatever it takes. The amount of work and the amount of stress and anxiety, and there's always other factors too. Like, you're not taking a paycheck, you're paying employees out of your own pocket, you're paying for your own health insurance. Like, there's a bunch of stressors that come into it that can be, tough. And there's not enough advice you can give to a founder up front. It's almost like ignorance is bliss. Like, you have to go into it almost ignorant and just assume that you're going to take off, and then you're not going to. And you just have to, like, I think the biggest thing for Huckabuy was our ability to pivot, to realize that my brilliant idea really wasn't that brilliant, and that this other idea that's like related to it might be a better path. And that sort of humility and knowing that, if your current idea is not making an impact or not getting enough revenue coming in, that you're probably going to have to change. And, even at this stage where we do these sort of small pivots that we're trying to iterate on the product, like the page speed product is a little bit of a pivot. It's not just SEO. It's like it's a page experience and a site delivery mechanism. So I think that's just how, a founder has to act. And, you're a founder, and it's not easy early on. You're going to have a lot of lumps, and you're going to have times where you're like, why am I doing this? But it's sort of that, like, just will to make it work.
How is like throughout the journey that you've had so far building your company, you had any like crucial like hiring hires that you've had, like people that you've hired that at that moment kind of your path like deviated in the right direction? What have been like the most important hires for you?
Yeah, I'd say our CTO was a really strategic hire that impacted our product in particular tremendously. Our product is just so much stronger in what we can do now to impact our customers. Like the page speed product is insane. It's an amazing product. So Chase Mathewson, our CTO, was a really critical hire. And I'd say you're always still looking, right? You always want that person that can impact the company in a really positive momentum. We have a new VP of sales, and I believe he's going to make a tremendous impact on Huckabuy. You just always have to be watching for people that can sort of take the ball and run with it and cause a really positive trajectory. That's a big part of the job becomes recruiting and hiring and finding the right people.
How do you typically do that? Like you use recruiters, or you search on LinkedIn, you search on Indeed, you search locally through your network? Where do you find the best talent?
Yeah, so we actually have an internal recruiter, HR. Her name's Patricia Witt. She works with one other company, another startup, but she handles all recruiting. And then once candidates are in, as an executive team, we meet with them and try to shake out who's the best cultural fit, who can make the biggest impact. But we do, fortunately, most of that in-house. I have worked in the past with a lot of external recruiters, but having the sort of internal knowledge and internal culture, I think, helps with finding the right people.
Cool. So on a different side, so your website loads like so fast. I mean, guys, you can check out the Huckabuy.com. It's so incredibly fast. How do you actually achieve that? Like, is that like very light pages, like build like HTML or something, or that's because you have this like some they're like on cloud on some specific kind of like location where they're easily accessible, or what's the secret?
Well, the first thing is we use our own product. So shameless plug there. We always use our product on our site, and so that's helping a lot. But probably the biggest thing is what's called edge delivery. So edge computing is a really big sort of buzz term among software engineers at this point. And we use a partnership with a company called Cloudflare that, think of it as you basically like load the site ahead of time, cache it in memory, and distribute it at what they call at edge, which means like around the world at different locations so that it's just ready to go. So there's nothing when you come to our site. So if you think of a website, typically like there's the core website, the HTML, and then you're calling other stuff in. So you're calling in like Google Analytics, and you're calling in a chat bot, and you're calling in, some personalization, or who knows what you have on the site. Usually an average page is like 10 pieces of JavaScript or something. So there's a bunch of stuff, and those are all in different locations. So, maybe your servers are in Miami, but your Google Analytics is in Palo Alto, and your chat box is in New York. So it's calling all around the country. If you can call all those things ahead of time and get the site to load so that it's all there, ready to go in one location, and that location is also, not just one location, locations around the world. So say I come in from Dubai, there's a server, right there that's able to deliver it instead of I have to make all those laps back and forth across the world. So that's really how it's done, is through sort of pre-compiling the site and hosting it at edge and being able to deliver it, instantaneously to users around the world. That's sort of the key. Like if I go to Huckabuy on my computer in Park City, Utah, I'll be hitting a different set of servers than you hitting Huckabuy there in Miami. There's servers in Miami and there's servers here in Utah. And so when I go to Huckabuy, I'm hitting the Utah servers and you're hitting the Miami servers.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that's what allows it to load so fast. How, like, for example, let's say the e-commerce, like a lot of the people that are listening, in our audience, like they're like e-commerce entrepreneurs, right? So how would they like take advantage? Let's say it's not like humongous like e-commerce brand, maybe it's like does $5-10 million in sales. How would they take advantage of this, and how do you think that would impact their kind of like search engines results, and also because we advertise on Facebook, a lot of our clients, and people in our community that Facebook also likes fast loading websites. So from the upside, I mean, I see there's a lot of, but what's the process for them to take advantage of this?
So the first and the biggest impact is actually just going to be their pure conversion rate. I mean, we tracked page speed on the exec scorecard at Overstock. It's a really important metric. I think it's the most underrated KPI in the marketing world, like, is page speed. And a lot of companies don't track it, and they'll do stuff too that influences it that they think is a positive thing. Like, they'll add a third-party chat bot and it's really crushes their page speed and they don't even know it. And they're getting, whatever improvement they're getting from the chat bot, it's getting destroyed by their Google rankings going down, their Facebook ads not being as efficient, their conversion rate dropping. So the first step, honestly, is to start tracking it and knowing what it is and knowing where the problems are.
What solution would you recommend to track? Because there is a Pingdom, right? There is a Google developers that have where you can track the speed on mobile. You can track the speed on desktop. There's also, I think there's like a third one that is used. Which one would you recommend is the most kind of credible and the one that you can actually trust?
Google. So Google's Lighthouse in particular is the most reliable one. And I recommend that
Google Lighthouse.
Google Lighthouse report. And then I would look at not just your homepage, which a lot of companies will do. They'll optimize their homepage, but then all the other pages, their category pages, their product pages will be really slow. So having been in the e-commerce space, you got to track homepage, category pages, product pages, refinement pages, all the different page types that you have need to be tracked. And with Lighthouse, it's actually the scores come from your own machine. So you might want, if you have a distributed team, to have one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. So you're actually doing 5 scores on the East Coast, 5 scores on the West Coast. That's a great place to get started. In terms of solving the problem of page speed, it is a pretty difficult problem to solve, but the first step is tracking it and knowing the things that are slowing you down. Obviously, we've created an outsourced SaaS solution for this, which is really convenient, but usually if you have a good development team, they're going to be able to do a bunch of stuff in-house that's actually starting to speed the site up. Now's the time to do it because slow sites are going to get penalized in May. But yeah, those are sort of the first steps and then, a good CDN, like content delivery network, like Cloudflare, can make a big difference. They actually do this sort of edge delivery themselves. So yeah, those are sort of the first steps that I would consider.
I just ran my website and it's disaster. It's 7.
Yeah, you're not alone. We'll get you fixed up, Alex.
Yeah. Wow, it's horrible. It's except 93, but then the performance is 7. So yeah, there's a lot of work to do on that side. What's revenue level or kind of the requirements you typically have for your clients that kind of would make sense for you as a company to work with them, and also would make sense for them? What's typically the minimum revenue level?
Yeah, about $1,000 a month will get your foot in the door with Huckabuy. Usually though, I think the average customer spends about $3,500 a month, and they're getting all 3 products. So they're getting the page speed, they're getting structured data, and they're getting the dynamic rendering. So, but for a relatively small e-commerce company that you mentioned earlier, that seems like kind of your target audience, I'd expect around $2,000 a month would probably be about what it would cost.
That's not a lot, considering
it pays for itself very quickly. Yeah. It pays for itself almost instantaneously, that's for sure.
Considering a lot of people that we work with, a lot of people in our community, some of the guys spending $50,000, $100,000, $150,000 on ads, per month.
Yeah.
And a lot of the e-commerce companies that are fast growing, they're relying on on paid advertising to fuel that growth, to acquire more customers. So in that perspective, it's very low investment. And you mentioned that the results would typically come quite fast.
The page speed is an on-off switch. You look at it beforehand and then you turn it on, you look at it after. So that one's really easy to test and look at the results. The other stuff is SEO, so it takes time. It takes 3, 6, 9 months. But the page speed's almost instantaneous and works really, really well. The other thing is it's going to make all those paid marketing channels a lot more efficient. So if you have slow page speed now, I mean, I've seen in e-commerce page speed improvements like double the conversion rate. So it's a really important factor. And it's not just going to impact, it's going to impact everything. So it's probably the highest, we try to make it the highest ROI investment that you can make, is to use the Huckabuy products. It's not crazy expensive, and you're going to get, a ton of benefit to your organic rankings and also to your conversion rate.
That's awesome. So how do people, like, if people want to check it out, so they just go to Huckabuy and like fill the application?
Yeah, just fill out a contact us form. Tell them that I listened to your podcast. We always give podcast listeners a nice discount. So make sure you mention the podcast. And yeah, if it's, it's pretty painless to get up and running with Huckabuy, and appreciate you mentioning that to your listeners.
Cool. What would be like your three pieces of advice that you like, considering you've had this path straight out of college, becoming the senior vice president of marketing in a very fast growing company, now building your company, going through these challenges eventually, but now finding the way to success? What would be your three lessons that you would share, like three main kind of like pieces of advice?
I think, well, probably the first is like this sort of level of intellectual curiosity. Like, you have to really enjoy this stuff and sort of be curious about what works and what doesn't, and what I could be doing that could help. I look at a lot of podcasts and also just like marketing materials, and they're always sort of chasing the next best thing. Or, like social was a really big deal, paid search and then social, and now like what you're doing with your Instagram. I mean, there's always these little things that are hot, but the stuff that really drives success, in my opinion, that you have to be really good at as a marketer. The first is, like, especially to the e-com audience of yours, the first is email marketing, like building your list and getting very good at monetizing that list. There's no paid spend there other than coupon spend. Don't be afraid to use coupons. Like, coupons are an amazing driver of growth. Like, so many brands, like, you can't tell you how many brands are so scared to use coupons because they feel like it's going to hurt their brand and this and that. Like, listen, Rolex and Louis Vuitton, they all use coupons. Like, it's okay. So the ability to discount, really good at email marketing, and really good at SEO. And then email, I kind of consider part of CRM. So specifically for your customers, like, or your listeners, it's, those things. Be willing to discount, be really good at email marketing and CRM, and be really good at SEO. And you're probably going to be very, very successful if you do those three things. If you don't do those three things well, it's going to be a struggle. Like, you're just going to have, it's going to be hard. So for your audience, I know you're probably looking for more like, work real hard and be creative, but I think those are the things that I've found are very reliable. Any e-commerce company that does those three things well grows like crazy. And it's part of almost every single success story. Look at just, Amazon is great at it. Prime, right?
Yeah.
Prime, their SEO and their ability to discount or price compare. They're fantastic at it. So almost all the great stories end up sort of in that realm.
Awesome. Cool. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Geoff, thank you so much for joining. I know you're busy, man. How do you structure your team? You guys are in office, or you have you kind of like work remotely for now?
Yeah, right now we're distributed. This is our office, and no one else comes in right now other than me. But we are distributed around the country. We've got a big group of developers. Yeah, this is the Huckabuy, first floor of the Huckabuy office. Yep.
looks great. It's very nice.
Yeah, it's a great space. Can't wait for us to all get our vaccines and be back in here together. Development's distributed around the country. Our marketing team's here in Utah. Our sales team's mainly here in Utah, and our support team is mainly here in Utah. Some in Texas, some in Oregon, but yeah, that's how we do it.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Thank you for joining. Thank you everyone for listening. We'll have the links to Huckabuy so you guys can check it out. And also I'll have the link to this like Lighthouse. I just downloaded and it's giving me like very bad results. So there's a lot of work to do on that one. So we'll have the links there. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for listening. Geoff, thank you for sharing, and have a good day.
Thanks, Alex.
Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. If you can just like this video and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of my videos in the future. Thank you.